Greetings, everybody, and welcome to another edition of AUHSD Future Talks. I'm your host, Superintendent Matsuda, and as our listeners know, this podcast is dedicated to the future of work for our young people, not just in Anaheim, but really across Americas. I think that we are definitely at a crossroads in terms of what K-12, K-16 institutions are doing to better prepare young people for the world of work. We've been very blessed to have amazing, outstanding guests from all spectrums of education and business and nonprofit. And today's guest is Brian Ahn, a doctoral student from Teachers College, Columbia University, who is studying adult learning and leadership. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hi, Superintendent Matsuda. Thank you for having me on.
So, of course, Columbia University, an Ivy League school and Teachers College, is consistently ranked probably in the top 3 teaching universities in the United States. And you've had a very interesting lived experience to get there. And then how did you connect with AUHSD? So we'll start with a little bit of your own history and background, Brian. So tell the audience who you are and what you're all about. What's your driver?
Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Ahn, and my driver is, in a sense, to push forward in service. I think I'm very service-oriented. My background, or just my work experience, is I was in the Peace Corps in 2013 in Zambia, AmeriCorps in 2016 in disaster preparedness, and also working with FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, in 2017 during Hurricane Harvey, Irma, and Maria. And then along that line, I got in touch with Professor Noam Chomsky, and now I am at Teachers College, Columbia University, working on various research projects in order to illuminate for the public at large on certain social issues. Yes.
So amazing lived experience. I mean, the Peace Corps and working in FEMA. What are some of your takeaways, and how did that inform your work now in terms of adult learning and leadership and education?
Well, the main reason why I joined the Peace Corps was right after university undergrad. I was very idealistic, I guess you could say, and for the most part, I believed that my purpose was to make the world just a little bit better, make it a little bit slightly better for a few people. And so especially one book in particular really motivated me to pursue it. It's The Alchemist, and it talked about living your own personal legend. And so I tried to apply that. And then I got into FEMA after the AmeriCorps, but FEMA, I wanted to do something in disaster management and helping people during their most difficult times, especially during disasters. And so I guess in a nutshell, that service mindset, in a sense, pushed me to really get into how to lead adults and how to manage them in the most effective way.
So it could, you've been drawn to sort of these, when you talk about Peace Corps, I mean, you're assigned to very third world type of environments, right? And then you're drawn to FEMA to work in disasters, earthquakes, and all kinds of stuff, right? Arguably, the pandemic is another disaster worldwide. What are some of the, learnings that you have from the people in FEMA that you've worked with or in the Peace Corps that you felt, hey, there's similarities here, and what are we learning from people themselves facing these types of horrific trauma and disasters?
Well, FEMA taught me specifically about emergency management and how to manage yourself and manage others during an emergency, trying to do the best work in the shortest amount of time. And so that really pushed me to understand this COVID pandemic being very similar. And, during the early stages of COVID, during 2020, I tried to mobilize my resources, try to help Teachers College. And so in a sense, it's all about doing the most good for the most amount of people in the least amount of time. And of course, with the pandemic, there was also issues such as Black Lives Matter and issues in regards with Asian hate. So trying to navigate yourself in a certain situation like that, one needs to be service oriented, I believe, and in the face of all this sort of trauma, you have to be pragmatic in how you want to make the world a better place again.
Yeah, that lines up with our vision to create a better world. I really commend you for this drive that you have. I think it matches the drivers for many of our teachers and educators and our administrators. I mean, they're driven by the need to create better spaces, better futures for young people. What are some of the, in a place like Teachers College, you have, when you study educational systems across the country. So what are some of the things that sort of, brought you together with AUHSD? And you had mentioned that the Black Lives Matter in response to some of the hate crimes, especially in the Asian American community. But, I think I want to give you a chance to share what you learned about us, AUHSD.
Yes. Well, specifically the Career Preparedness Systems Framework, the CPSF, I learned a lot about it. And the three distinct drivers are youth, voice, and purpose, 21st century skills, there's 5 C's, and technical skills. And actually, these elements, these drivers actually really enable a person to holistically be a better person, or just to be a good person in society, to push services and push for societal change within the system itself. And actually, the CPSF, because I'm in Teachers College, Adult Learning and Leadership Program, I'm learning more and more about learning organizations, about systems thinking, and about theorists like Keegan, Senge, and Jack Mesereau, for instance. They all want to make the system better to make it more sustainable. And how to do it, you need different levels of support within the system to make the experience, the actual striving for a better world occur.
So one of the challenges, Brian, for big systems like the AUHSD is this cohesion, right, under a common sort of vision. And I know that one of your drivers is service, right? So do you think there's a linkage between service, creating a better world, and maybe mitigating hate crimes, something that's impacted many minorities and LGBT communities? Do you think there's a linkage between the service and the rise in hate crimes, or is there a correlation there?
Yeah, actually, having kind of like a service mindset, or in a sense, having a sense of purpose, those can address systems of inequality. Especially, I've learned that the AUHSD, they have really, your district has really engaged in civic action and engagement. Your students definitely have tried to move the world, or the US, to a better place socially. And your district, from what I can tell from the research that I did about it, it's really what is needed in this time, especially because I guess most school districts, their driver that they follow is, test scores, but yours follows youth voice and purpose, 21st century skills, and technical skills.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so like, because I'm very interested in this correlation between what we're attempting to do in creating a better world, right? And I think that we call it compassion and kindness, right? Yours is service, and which I think embodies compassion, right? Because we have kids out like the Serve-a-thon, and there's so many applied learning opportunities where kids of different background can work together. Because you could arguably say that the Nazis from Germany in World War II had a sense of purpose, right? Surely,
Yeah.
but not grounded in making the world a better place, or not grounded in that fifth C, which I think schools should intentionally try to cultivate, right? More than ever, because that goes back to really what brought you and me together is your concern about the rising hate crimes against minorities, especially Asian Americans, and what schools should be doing about it. So I'm going to ask you, what should schools be doing about that? We just talked about service is important, building compassion is important, but what else can schools be doing? And does that relate to the CPSF?
It does. It does relate, because from what I hear from different teachers, different districts, because of COVID-19, because of the fact that everyone's kind of in their own bubble right now, no one's going out and everything is chaotic, people tend to go back to their prior knowledge, prior experiences, teaching to the test. But that in itself is not what is needed. They need to prepare students more for the future world that they will embark on. For instance, careers and their purpose in life. I think, in regards with living your personal legend, test scores do not exactly help promote students to really think outside the box and to try new things.
I know one of the things that you've been interested in is the development of the Magnolia Agricultural Community Center, the MACC for short. Why are you attracted to a program like that?
Oh, I'm attracted to it primarily because of the fact that, as you know, there's food deserts everywhere, and actually the MACC is addressing that, and it's teaching the community at large, or the community around the school, Magnolia, how to eat healthier, be more sustainable, and how to live a better future for themselves and for, the community. It's a very sustainable experiment, good pilot program.
It is an experiment, and one of the things that we're proud of is that it's teacher-led, and teachers are integrating these concepts into the classroom. Because at the end of the day, in order for it to really flourish, the students have to have agency in what they're doing. They have to own it, right? Otherwise, it's something imposed on them. When you study, learning and teaching at Teachers College, what are how do you create that agency? I mean, for us, it's applied problem solving. Are we on the right track?
Yes, I believe you are on the right track. I think the whole notion of the CPSF and the whole framework that is leading the school district to do what it's doing is important, very important. And the business relationships that you have developed is amazing. And this is a time where people need to take some risk, I believe. And not just silly risks, but risks based on making the environment, the community better. And so from what I can see, your district, especially focusing on career preparedness, it is preparing students for their futures. It is preparing them for their not just high school, but their college and afterwards as well, along with learning how to deal with uncomfortable situations that they'll face later on in the future. They will face, yeah.
Yes. So back to how we connected is really through the rise of the Asian hate crimes across the country. And you've had a chance to interview a lot of people in the Asian Pacific community about this. What do you feel are some of the root causes of this, especially targeting Asians? And some of the hate crimes are by other minority groups on Asians as well. What do you think is going on there in terms of that rise? Because I know in Orange County it rose by 10 times, a huge spike.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. Actually, what I've learned doing the 7 in-depth interviews with leaders in different fields, domains, is that the correlation, the theme I'm seeing is that there is not enough understanding of Asian American history, about the Asian American experience itself, primarily because the model minority stereotypes and various things that are working against the Asian American people. It's not exactly conducive for them to grow as a.
Can you remind the audience what is the model minority and how do you think that impacts this rise in hate crimes?
Well, the model minority myth or stereotype is primarily based on the idea that Asian Americans are able to excel, especially in schools, and they're good at science, math, and different engineering. And so what this does is that it does not let Asian Americans, especially those who are not model minorities, to get assistance. And so more and more you're seeing this kind of divide between the different ethnic groups. For Asian Americans, they are not getting the assistance and they're not getting the sort of needed support that they need to rise in, for instance, their careers afterwards as well.
So what is the correlation between that and the rise of hate crimes? I mean, what are some of the reasons why there's been such a big spike? Because certainly the model minority myth has always been there. So why is it all of a sudden? And I think this really brought a lot of national attention in terms of the hate crimes with the Asian women in Georgia that happened. And then all of a sudden it was just all over the place.
I think it's the model minority. I think it placed Asian Americans or just Asians in general on a pedestal whereas they were not given the necessary media attention to really talk about their histories, talk about the inclusion of World War II, what happened to the Japanese American intern in the internment camps, along with various things in regards with the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, along with other things that happened, especially the Korean War and all the repercussions, and the Vietnamese War and all the repercussions that affect these communities, their shared or their traumas of these very distinct ethnic groups. So
what you're talking about is the need for more ethnic studies. Is that what you're saying? Is that one of the recommended recommendations from an emerging expert like yourself? Is that what you're saying?
I think there is a need for more ethnic studies, especially for Asian Americans, for people to really understand that Asian Americans are Americans. And
right, bottom line, as Latino Americans are Americans, or African Americans, right? And I think that's really one of the challenges, right? How do we navigate that in such a way that we don't teach hate, right? You can be proud of your own culture and history, but not teach hate. And I think that's been the approach of our district, and to navigate this very sensitive issue out there. But again, I asked earlier though why these issues have always been there, but why all of a sudden a big spike in anti-Asian hate crimes?
I think there is a different. I'm not quite sure exactly what the real reason, or like there's a lot of multiple reasons for why things occur in the social space, but especially when people are not doing as well economically, they want to feel better about themselves. And if you see one specific ethnic group somehow doing well, and then all this sort of animosity comes out, I think. So like the other.
Okay, in the minutes that we have left, I know that you had a chance to look at the district's new website, that was helped to develop through our relationship with Roadtrip Nation. Could you comment on that again from your 30,000 foot lens at Teachers College? What did you think about that? Because it's like a career and jobs hub app.
Oh, I think it's very good, especially the Roadtrip Nation. You know, especially for students who are just getting into the market or getting into colleges or jumping into careers. They need to know, in a sense, this kind of the expertise that's out there, and they need to know the experience of these people in these fields. So, you know, in regards with these pathways, it could lead them to better choices in regards with their careers.
That are more aligned with their calling, right, and their purpose.
Right. And
so the 1 or 2 minutes that we have left, Brian, could you tell the audience about the plan for Teachers College to work with AUHSD on sort of a national sharing of what we're doing?
Oh, that's potentially there is something in the works in regards with working with AUHSD and the career CPSF to highlight that to different communities, different networks. And this potentially could happen maybe later in the spring, or it could happen in the summer. It's because of our
that's really exciting to be partnering with Teachers College, Brian, and through your connections. So we're so very grateful for the work that you're doing as a young researcher focusing on adult learning and leadership. I think we can talk for another show about adult learning and leadership, but you have impressed me as someone who walks the walk of leadership. You're a very humble man, and you're very inquisitive. I really enjoy talking to you and about these important issues going forward. So on behalf of our 29,000 plus students, thank you very much.
Thank you, Superintendent Matsuda.